Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Over 50 and Flourishing. I'm your host, Dominique Sachse. I am so excited to welcome Betsy Pepine today. She is just a transformational leader in real estate. She's the CEO of Pepine Realty. You think we're going to be talking all about real estate? Not till the very end. We're actually going to be talking about her new book called Breaking Boxes. It explores how to break free from societal expectations at any stage of life. Yep, another one with a great midlife reinvention story. She has built literally one of the top real estate firms in the country, recognized by the Wall Street Journal, and her nonprofit, which is called Pepine Gives, is making a huge impact by providing homes for families who are in need. We'll be diving into her incredible journey, her mindset shifts, her pillars, as she discussed them, that will help us all flourish in midlife and beyond. So please welcome to the podcast, Betsy Pepine. Support for today's episode comes from OneSkin. Did you know your body starts accumulating these things called senescent cells as early as your 20s? They're also called zombie cells because they're like wrecking balls. They stop producing collagen and hyaluronic acid like they used to, and then they start increasing an inflammatory substance that makes neighboring cells dysfunctional. Sounds like a mess, right? Well, that's why there's OneSkin, because treating the symptoms rather than the root causes of aging, that has long been the norm. Most skincare available on the market is designed to provide a temporary reduction in visible signs of aging, addressing just the surface symptoms of underlying skin decline in our skin's health. But OneSkin goes far deeper. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. So get started today with 15% off using code OVER50 at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code OVER50. After your purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Ever have a time when your skepticism served you well, where you thought twice about something and after you learned about it, you were glad you did? Well, you don't have to be a skeptic anymore when it comes to your multivitamin, specifically Rituals Women for 50 Plus. It is research stacked and science backed. And guess what, ladies? It's just one pill that you take at night and you don't have to worry about a thing. It is sustainably sourced, high quality, traceable key ingredients, clean in bioavailable forms. No more shady business for you. Rituals Essential for Women 50 Plus is a multivitamin you can actually trust. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/over50. Start Ritual or add Essential for Women 18 Plus to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/over50 for 25% off. Hi, Betsy. So good to have you with us today. You know, I love getting to know women and their inspirational stories. You clearly have one. And I sort of teed it up and gave everybody a little background about you in the introduction. I'm going to let you do a little bit more and a deeper dive into who you are and how you got to where you are. But you shared with me that you've been with me on my YouTube journey for a really long time. And so before we launch in, can I just extend a thank you?
Oh,
No, seriously. I mean, you said you've been with me like 10 bathrooms ago, which made me chuckle. That was really funny. So thank you. I think you said something like 2015.
yeah.
So I'm so grateful for that. And what an honor to be able to talk to you and have you now on the podcast and to be able to tell your story.
Oh,
So, I mean, you have this incredibly successful realty company, Pepine Realty. You've written a book, Breaking Boxes. You know, that's sort of where I want to go first, but give everybody a little backstory as to how you got where you are today.
so I was actually prior to being in real estate, I was in the pharmaceutical marketing industry. I got out of college, did that for a decade, was laid off unexpectedly, got divorced unexpectedly, all within a couple of months of each other, and came home. And it's funny because when I tell people I moved back home, I literally moved back into my childhood bedroom, and I was 32, with a
Wow.
1 and 2 year old, 1 and 2 year old daughters. It took me a couple of years to really regroup and figure out what my new direction was. And I got into real estate and have loved it since the day I got in. It's now been 19 years. And I really feel like that is what God has called me to do. I don't sell houses. I help people through their major milestones through life. And usually that's requires then a house move. So there's usually some kind of life event that requires the house move. And so I just feel like I'm their friend through that stressful period. But anyway, I did that. I started growing that business, and then that business took off. And then I started growing and developing other businesses that support that business. So we have title company, real estate school. I have a nonprofit that I care deeply about, which provides housing for cost-burdened families in Florida. So we're serving a population that oftentimes they can't afford to buy a home traditionally and use our services. So we provide housing for them through a program. So that's just a wonderful passion of mine that we do on the side. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
It's incredible. There was something you said that I thought, okay, whoa. We're going to back up because, getting laid off of a job and then suddenly going through a divorce within months of each other and then moving back into your parents' house when you're in your mid 30s with 2 children. Let's rewind because this is, and the reason why you're on is you are an incredible success story, obviously, but we always talk about redefining ourselves in midlife and that you can chart a new course and that sometimes junk happens to you, but it doesn't have to define you. So I want to go back because I hear from women all the time who say, I'm stuck. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I can do. Mm-hmm. I don't have any options. Mm-hmm. And you're here to say, well, wait a second, sometimes you do have options. They may not be pretty, may not be sexy, may not be what you designed for yourself, but you always have options. So I want you to get us back to that space and what was going on in your head at that time.
Yeah. Well, it's been a journey. I didn't get there on day one.
Right.
But I think for me at the beginning, like I thought, oh my goodness, my marriage was a failure. But I reframed that in my mind. And now I say my marriage was complete. It fulfilled its natural course and ended. And it served us well, and it no longer served us. And I look at that, I have that same mindset now. I almost think of it as lenses on our eyes. Like when you go to the doctor's office and they put these, different lenses. So I like to look through the lens of opportunity. I truly don't believe failure exists. I think it's actually one of the many boxes we put ourselves into. It's a mental and human construct. And what if we just said, there's always lessons. There's no failure. It might be a lesson we didn't know we needed to learn. It might be a pivot we weren't expecting. But to use that word failure, then so many other things come into your mind when you put that label on yourself. So I don't ever do that. It's never a failure. It's a pivot. It's a learning. It's a lesson. And now I have a mindset of almost curiosity, like, oh, let's see what this opportunity, and it's an opportunity. I always frame things as opportunities, even though I don't want some of these opportunities that present themselves in my life. I say to myself, how is this opportunity going to unfold? And it's almost like you have this mindset of an observer and you're watching it. I mean, you're definitely proactive, but you're watching it play out. You understand that there's things that you can learn from anything. And then my favorite word, and I think you actually would probably agree with this, is next. And it's take the lesson and move on. Mm-hmm. We cannot stay in the past. And so that's what it's taken me a long time to get there, but that's kind of my mindset. And with the divorce and the layoff, I was in the pharmaceutical industry and my hometown was in Florida, and Florida doesn't have a pharmaceutical industry. So
which is kind of shocking when you think about the population in Florida. I know. Can you explain that one to me?
Well, I used to work in corporate headquarters in marketing.
You would think the headquarters would be in Florida.
I know. That's very true. So I do feel like God had a plan. Like I couldn't go to that. And when I really evaluated, I actually didn't like the industry. I liked everything else about it. I liked the lifestyle it gave me. I liked the friends it gave me, but I didn't like my work. And now I found work that I absolutely love. I never work a day in my life. And I never knew that really existed until this opportunity, was presented to me 20 years ago.
Explain that, because I can only imagine you're back in your bedroom where you grew up as a child in your parents' house back in Florida with 2 young children. And you're thinking, all right, I'm out of the pharmaceutical industry. How did real estate happen? I mean, did you just think of that? Did someone say, hey, you ought to consider real estate? I mean, how did those, let's talk about the decisions to pivot and what they look like.
Yeah. So for me, I reflected on what do I truly love to do? What did I like to do as a child? I think that gives us clues as to what, before everything was, before we kind of got indoctrinated into society, what were we born to like and do naturally? And real estate, I used to, as a kid, I'd love to walk through homes. I mean, we had forts in our backyard, and I would set up like little houses, and each the trees were different rooms, and I'd invite people over to my house, and I just loved everything about that. And then when I was at business school, I got to take a class, unbelievably, where we got to go into, I went to school in Philadelphia. We got to go into row homes in West Philadelphia, gutted them out, rebuilt them. We ourselves rebuilt them. And then we got to interview at-risk families and sold the homes to cost-burdened families at a very nominal price. And to see what housing did for the trajectory of a family was something that imprinted on me. And I was like, wow, if I could be a part of that every day, how much more meaningful my life would be. So, so it was a combination of that. And my parents did, growing up, they weren't in real estate, but they had investment property. And so I did see that as well. And so it just all kind of, I thought, you know what, this is a direction I want to try. And for me, to reduce the fear, I gave myself 2 years. I had built a very small nest egg. and I said, okay, we can live on rice and beans. I know I can make it for 2 years. And then I had a plan B, and that was to go back. We don't have a pharmaceutical industry where I live, but we do have a large major medical center. So I thought, well, I can just go back into healthcare, into marketing at this major healthcare center. That was my plan B. And fortunately, plan B never came into fruition.
Right, right. Those quiet moments when you're sort of alone in the darkness, that's when I think those epiphanies happen. And, I'm just wondering what those thoughts were like for you as you were sitting there in the darkness at that home and saying, okay, it's time to honor some seeds. And it's interesting. Sometimes I think we have to get to those places to get away from the noise, away from the structure and the predictability of what is. When we're in that murky unknown, suddenly we start really listening to what's going on inside. And that's probably when you reflected upon those seeds planted in you. And I just think that's such an important story to tell.
Yeah, it was. And it was very difficult because I came from a family where the expectation was you were going to be a doctor. And that was, that was very hard for me when I didn't become a physician, but I did straddle that expectation and stayed in the healthcare profession as being in the pharmaceutical industry. So when I was breaking entirely from that industry, it was very difficult to share with my parents that I was going into a career that required a GED and a 1 week class,
Yeah, I saw that one.
And they're like,
I'm sure at that point they were really happy to get you out of the house. It's like, Betsy, go do whatever.
You know what? Honestly, that's what they did. They said to me, and they only wanted the best for me, but they said to me,
sure.
You go, Betsy, you go do what you want to do. But just know that you're not going to be our realtor. And I remember being so hurt by that. And I said, how
interesting
in the world? And my mom said, well, you remember this woman, she helped us buy our house. And I said, I know, Mom, but that was 40 years ago. And she said, but every year she sends me a box of chocolate. So I couldn't possibly use anybody else. And I was definitely heartbroken, but that gave me courage, because I'm like, wait a minute, if all it takes is a box of chocolate to earn somebody's loyalty, I'm going to do well in this industry.
Right. What? What a great reframe, because what could have been a sting was actually a super valuable life lesson about why your mother had loyalty to somebody who only served her once in her life with the purchase of that home, and yet remains connected to her to that day. I mean, you're so right. That's a fantastic story. I love that. So, okay. I mean, you get started, you get your GED, you're pursuing real estate. Look, we know it's not glitz and glam from the get-go. So what were those early years and the early struggles like?
The first 6 months, I literally probably cried every day, and I'm not a crier, but I was just not used to the there's a lot of interesting behavior that goes on in the real estate industry, just because it's an industry where which I didn't recognize when I went in, is all the money that's transacted in real estate is coming out of somebody's pocket. It's not some corporation. It's not some nebulous corporate budget. It's coming directly out of a buyer, a seller's pocket, or the realtor's income. And people sadly act very differently when it's their own money versus a third party's budget. So I just felt like that was interesting to me and disheartening. But I grew a shell, and now, I mean, I truly nothing in the industry impacts me. Like, I feel like I have this armor on in terms of things that go on, and my sense of self and my emotional and mental well-being is so solid because of that, because I went through the first couple of years of real estate. The other thing with real estate, and I'm sure with most pivots, you don't really know if it's going to work. For 6 months, I really didn't know if it was going to work. The income was very variable. But after about 6 months, I got into a rhythm, and I'm like, okay, I know I can make a go of it. May not be incredibly successful, but I know we can eat and survive. And then at 2 years, I knew, okay, I could see a path, and I'm like, this is a go. I'm on full throttle. We're moving forward.
And before we take a quick commercial break, how old were you when you decided to make this change?
I was 37.
Yeah. So you were almost in midlife,
Yes.
and 2 young kids and single and on your own and at your parents' house. And so, which goes to show there are opportunities for us all if that calling either is dropped on us or is a choice. And our guest today is Betsy Pepine. Very, very successful realtor. She is the founder and CEO of Pepine Realty. We're also going to talk to you, Betsy, about your book, which is Breaking Boxes. Cannot wait to dive into that because, I'm all about it. So we're going to thank our sponsors in the moment for providing this content free of charge. And we'll be right back. Support for today's episode comes from OneSkin. Did you know your body starts accumulating these things called senescent cells as early as your 20s? They're also called zombie cells because they're like wrecking balls. They stop producing collagen and hyaluronic acid like they used to, and then they start increasing an inflammatory substance that makes neighboring cells dysfunctional. Sounds like a mess, right? Well, that's why there's OneSkin, because treating the symptoms rather than the root causes of aging, that has long been the norm. Most skincare available on the market is designed to provide a temporary reduction in visible signs of aging, addressing just the surface symptoms of underlying skin decline in our skin's health. But OneSkin goes far deeper. I'm on our Greece trip right now with my viewers, and OneSkin has great travel size products as well. Just one product for face, skin, eye, body, that's it. So we're going deep, we're going cellular, and we're going small. I like everything about that. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. So get started today with 15% off using code OVER50 at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code OVER50. After your purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Ever have a time when your skepticism served you well, where you thought twice about something and after you learned about it, you were glad you did? Well, you don't have to be a skeptic anymore when it comes to your multivitamin, specifically Ritual's Women for 50 Plus. It is research stacked and science backed. And guess what, ladies? It's just one pill that you take at night and you don't have to worry about a thing. It is sustainably sourced, high quality, traceable key ingredients, clean in bioavailable forms. In fact, I'm on my Greece trip right now. Not only do I have my Women for 50 Plus, I also have Symbiotic Plus. That's a prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic. I wanted to make sure my gut was in great health. When you travel, you never know how things can go. Let me tell you what, you open that bottle, it is minty fresh. It's so easy to take their vitamins. And you don't have to worry, and you're getting exactly what you need. So skepticism pays off here. No more shady business for you. Ritual's Essential for Women 50 Plus is a multivitamin you can actually trust. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/over50. Start Ritual or add Essential for Women 18 Plus to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/over50 for 25% off. Welcome back. We are talking with Betsy Pepine today, the co-founder, CEO of Pepine Realty, author of the brand new book available now called Breaking Boxes. Boy, girl, after listening to your story, clearly you broke some boxes because, I mean, you went from married mother of two in the pharmaceutical industry to going through a divorce in your 30s and pursuing the real estate industry, which you've done incredibly successfully. So congratulations to you. And I want to talk about what you would attribute your success to, kind of your methodology and what you've learned along the way in your growth process in becoming a realtor, but also just maturing and becoming a woman in midlife as well. So about the book, what inspired you to write it? I mean, clearly you have a story, but was there an impetus to the whole thing?
There was. When I was I'm 55, and when I was in my late 40s, I was getting increasingly unhappy. And it took me, honestly, about a year to even admit that to myself, because I recognized that I have been gifted a lot of privilege in my life compared to other people in terms of family support, financial support. And so I didn't feel like I had the right to be unhappy. And when I was honest with myself and recognized that, I started a process of a variety of different things. And during that process, I saw this picture on the internet of this young, maybe 4-year-old girl, and she's in her one-piece bathing suit. She's on a green, lush lawn. Her legs and arms are spread out as wide as can be. Her face, pure, unbridled joy, rain coming down. And across her body, there's text that says, "Remember her. She's waiting inside you. Let's go get her." And it was just, I printed out that picture. I have it on my wall. I have it as a screensaver on my phone and on my computer. It's in my office. I wanted that, whatever that was, that energy. And about a year later, I live in Florida, and about a year later, we were hunkering down for a hurricane. And I always try to have a project when we have hurricanes, because invariably the electricity goes out. And sure enough, for this,
Hello.
yeah. So I was doing this, getting ready for the one hurricane. Sure enough, 2 hours in, the lights go out. And so I light the candles, and my project for that hurricane was to put old photos into photo albums. And so I did that. And then I put the empty photo boxes. I was going to the trash can to throw them away. And I noticed on the bottom of the last box, there was a photo turned down. And so I pulled out the photo, and I couldn't see it because it was dark. I took it over to the candle, and it was like a bolt of lightning went through me. And it was not from the storm outside. I ran to my home office with the candle and the photo, and I put it up against the wall. And then I look back at the photo I'm holding, and it's a picture of a little girl in her favorite one-piece red striped bathing suit in the ocean. She's standing 3 feet in front of her father. She's trying to hug a wave that's coming at her. And on the bottom of that photo is, in my mom's black handwriting, "Betsy, aged 4." And I thought, oh my gosh, like, where did I lose my way?
Yeah.
And what I realized was I had checked off all the boxes that I thought meant success, but I wasn't happy. And when I went back, I did therapy, I did journaling, I did EMDR, I did bioenergetics, and I still do a lot of this, meditation, yoga, and really got in touch with myself. The common thread where I was during my life when I was most unhappy is when I felt like, when you buy those mattresses, well, maybe you haven't, but I bought some mattresses online, and they come in a box like this big. And then you open up the box, and it expands to the size of like a king size mattress.
Yes.
I felt like I was that mattress inside that box, feeling pressure from I call them boxes, these boxes that society places on us, our gender places on us, our roles play on us, all these different
marriage, relationships,
exactly,
parenting,
everything.
Sure.
And so then I wrote these stories down, and I'm like, I wanted to share it. My goal was just to share it, because when I would share my stories with people, they all had their own stories. And I thought, gosh, if I could just help one person look at what boxes they might be in that are no longer serving them, I think sometimes, and myself included, we stay in boxes, we overstay our welcome. Some
Yeah.
boxes never served us and we didn't realize it. So they tend to overstay their welcome. So hopefully the book will help them recognize boxes. Because if that's the first thing is you can't get out of a box if you're not aware you're in one. And then helping them navigate how to get out of them gracefully if they need to exit. And honestly, we put other people in boxes too. And we don't even know we're doing it. We may not even know the harm. Like my parents didn't know the harm that I felt by them having this expectation that I was a physician. They just wanted the best for me, but they were putting me in a box that I never wanted to be in. So that's what the book is about. And that's what inspired me to write the book.
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially about freedom and individualism, about honoring who you were created to be. And oftentimes that leads to very difficult, hard discussions with people because either we put ourselves in the box or we have other people's pressure. Like you talk about societal pressure, and that can come from parents, friends, spouses, you name it,
Right.
who say and believe, the shoulds, right? You should do this. Well, only you know what's being placed in your heart. And if you don't stand up and dig in your heels and honor that, and it's very, very hard, by the way,
Yeah.
for a young woman, right? When we're young, we just don't necessarily have that fortitude, that voice yet. We're finding it, we're forming it.
Yeah.
And it's troubling because it can lead a lot of people astray. Or you think, oh, well, everybody else is doing this by now. Think about the societal pressures on young girls, in their 20s. I see so many women marrying very, very young these days. And there's this intense pressure to be married by a certain age, to start having babies by a certain age. And well, according to whom?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And so, talk about how you help people get outside the box, so to speak, to stop buying into those voices and to start listening to your own and listening to God's
Yeah.
voice.
I think what I like to say is just start asking why. Why are you doing certain things? Anytime the trigger words are anytime you hear the word should, right? Or adjectives like very, they're very X, that's a judgment. Or they're too X, they're, whatever, whatever the adjective is, that's a judgment. And these are all things. I find it so interesting because these are all human things. You don't find this in you have a dog. Dogs don't contemplate if somebody's too X or Y. They don't think like that, right?
Right.
But we do as humans. And so just starting to question why. I remember the first time I was, I got divorced and I was at a physician's office and the medical intake form, they needed updated and the normal questions, your name, address, all that. Then I came to this question that stopped me cold in my tracks. And it was marital status, single, married, divorced, or widowed. Now I had answered that question thousands of times prior to this. Never thought of that question as being offensive. And I was offended. And I thought, oh my gosh, after everything I had just been through, you want me to just check a box. And as though that summed up everything I just lived through. And also like, wait a minute, I'm divorced, but I'm single too. I was married. At what point, now it's been years since I've been divorced. Am I still divorced or do I get to be single again? And then I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why do they need to know if I am in a relationship or ever have been in one that I warranted was serious enough to take to the courthouse steps for their stamp of approval? Like what information, why do I need to provide that information? So I didn't check any box and it was fine. Nobody said a word.
You know what I've done? I've checked multiple.
That's right.
All the above. You're not going to put me in one box. We're going to put me in many.
I love it.
I mean, seriously, that's a podcast in and of itself, the ridiculousness of that question.
I know. It's crazy. And I mean, the single box is one that's, I could go on and on about. It's interesting because, I don't think it's a box people realize they're putting me into. When I tell people I'm single, most people immediately go to, oh, who do I know that I can fix her up with? It's almost like it's a condition.
We have to fix her.
Yeah, it's a condition that needs fixed. when I have not
Yeah.
said, I have not suggested to them that I'm unhappy, but I think society looks at that as that's not ideal or that's not okay, or there's just something, let me help you. and, and I think that's just very interesting. But yeah, so,
Yeah.
so start to question, why are people asking us this? Who's asking us? Do they need to know? Is this right for me? I think the other thing for me that was really helpful is, because I was not used to doing this, is really getting in touch with my feelings. We grew up in a home that was very cerebral and what do you think, Betsy? But no one ever asked, Betsy, how do you feel? And that was not at all a question ever directed at me. And if anything, the messaging was emotions are fleeting and unreliable. You got to make your decisions on the facts. And that, I think, that took me a long time to rework in my mind and really get in touch with how do I feel? Because your body tells you, I think, before your mind, whether something's right or not for you. And just getting used to that sensation in my body and trusting it and moving towards that versus waiting for facts in my head to okay it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And it's funny. I grew up in a very similar household where it was very logical, methodical, deductive reasoning. So I'm feeling you, and it was all about decision making. So we're gonna take a little break here. We're gonna when we come back, we'll talk more about honoring those feelings. But then there's not only is there awareness, but there's action. And that's where a lot of people get hung up, Betsy, is in the action of breaking out of that box because it's uncomfortable. It's scary. There's light coming in. There could be wind coming in. There could be rain coming in. There's a lot of non-safety when we break outside the box, but there could also be this glorious sunshine that we're missing out on as well. So my guest today is Betsy Pepine. She is a rock star in the real estate world. She also wrote a book called Breaking Boxes, available right now. And that's what we're talking about. And we will discover more after this quick commercial break. Support for today's episode comes from iMemories. Okay, are you like me and you have boxes of old VHS tapes with all of your old memories stored on them, hanging out in the garage, collecting dust, not to be seen by anybody? Stop it. All you have to do is load your tapes into the Safe Ship Kit, send it into iMemories. They organize it all. They are the only digitization company with apps that let you stream your memories to your TV, phone, or tablet. No, they don't just put them back on DVDs that go back in the closet. They actually put them where they're going to be enjoyed. Just load your Safe Ship Kit with your tapes, films, and photos. No organization necessary. Send it in. They carefully digitize your cherished memories with the utmost care. You stream and share them with your loved ones on your phone, TV, or tablet, and that's it. iMemories just launched the industry's only AI enhancement service. They call it Mackenzie AI, and it enhances your memories with stunning color, clarity, and sharpness. How on earth do you say no? iMemories is offering our listeners 50% off digitization. Get started now for just $15. Go to iMemories.com/over50 to get your Safe Ship Kit for sending in your home movies. Then use promo code over50 for half off your digital conversion. That is iMemories.com/over50. Welcome back. We are talking with Betsy Pepine, and we've been talking about her new book, Breaking Boxes. And Betsy, before the break, we were talking about feelings and that we actually have to honor how we're feeling in the moment and take notice, to have a count and to sit there and to be in it and allow it. Sometimes we push, we work, we do so much to prevent those feelings from settling in because we may not like what we actually feel about a situation, about a job, about a relationship, about you name it, any big ticket item here. So, once you allow yourself to sit, talk about that next step of acting and really getting outside of the box that either you've put yourself in or you feel somebody else. Ultimately, we've made the decision. So we can't say other people put us here. Right. We still allowed it to happen, or maybe we thought it was where we were supposed to be. Right. So let's talk about those pivots and changes when we feel we need them.
Yeah. I think the first thing for me is just to recognize any fear that I might be having. we talked earlier about fear of failure, which I feel like that I've mastered. I don't even use that as a consideration, but there is still fear of social isolation. You know, a lot of times when you step outside a box or go into a new box, you are going to change your social circle, or you're going to upset some people in your current social circle. And that is just, that's uncomfortable.
Right.
But I say to myself, would I rather say no to them or no to me? You know, I think,
That's a great way to put it.
yeah. And so, and I used to say, yes to other people and no to me. I stopped doing that. And you become so much more empowered and so much more authentic. And then you attract people who are attracted to your authenticity. So it's wonderful, because then, to me, I want people in my life that like me and want to be around me when I'm my most authentic self. So
Right.
so knowing that makes it easier to move in that direction, because I understand that if there is a loss that is to be had, then it probably was meant to be, for both
Yeah.
parties.
Yeah, I mean, there's that expression, a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And I think we have a hard time thinking that maybe somebody is there just
Yeah.
seasonally. And we think people are going to come in our lives and be in our lives forever. But it's not necessarily designed to be that way. There's an ebb and a flow, and there's an in and an out
Right.
in a lot of cases. And we have to be okay with
Right.
both and with the letting go, don't
Right,
we?
exactly. And just because you're letting it go, it doesn't have to be uncomfortable, or oh my gosh, we're no longer going to chat. It's just you're redefining the relationship, so the frequency may be less, their importance in your life may be less, but it doesn't have to be a total cutoff. And sometimes it does have to be that, but that's okay when you're moving in a new direction. I think the other thing that helps is, for me, writing it down and doing baby steps, getting practice being courageous in areas that may not be as impactful in your life at the beginning, makes that courage muscle much more stronger when you really need it. So even just something as simple as doing something new every day, that's something that I strive to do. And some days it's literally only because nothing else new has happened, taking a new route to work. But constantly having new things, people, ideas into your life helps you be more comfortable with change. And I love that. And I think that's an easy way to get used to the uncomfortableness of new. Because I find that even with in real estate, you see these folks that have to buy a home for a good reason. They got a job promotion, a baby's coming. And it's so stressful, even though they know the change is something that's going to better their lives. So I think the more we get used to having new things being introduced into our lives, the easier it is to reduce the stress and the fear from the new things.
Yeah, you said a couple of things earlier. First of all, I like the word curiosity. I think that's such a great way to look at newness, not from a lens. And you also mentioned, when you go to the eye doctor and they put those different lenses and prisms and whatnot. And so, we can look at it as blurry, or we can look at it as, okay, it's blurry now, but if I start sharpening that
Mm-hmm.
lens and I'm curious about it,
Mm-hmm.
I can get it dialed in so that I can see clearly. And that's kind of part of that process
Mm-hmm.
that's going on. And the other thing that you mentioned too, you talked about this kind of life implosion that happened to you in your 30s, and then you said, almost a decade later, you started just not feeling right.
Mm-hmm.
And just because we make a change and a choice to do a new career and a new path doesn't mean we're immune
Mm-hmm.
from feelings of depression, feelings of something's off.
Mm-hmm.
You can make a career choice, you can make a choice, but you still may have to deal with at some point your own feelings and your own processing about things. And so talk about that, because I think it's important to tell people, look, just because you make a decision to pursue a certain path
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean it's going to be smooth sailing forever and ever and ever. Amen.
No, not at all. And what I've learned, and what I teach my agents is, life is, you got to build the foundation. So like when I was going through that divorce and my job at that time, when I was 32, I had three main pillars in my life. I had my marriage, I had my kids, and I had my job. Two of those got pulled, were no longer there in a short period of time. And when you're sitting on a three-legged stool and two legs go out, you land on the floor. And that's I did. I landed on the floor, and it took me a while to regroup. But I did learn, like, I will never be in that situation again. I will never only have 3 pillars in my life. And so now we teach our agents, and from the research I've done, 6 to 8 solid life pillars really makes a strong foundation. So it could be career. But it could also be if you are staying at home with your children. It could be that. It could be friends and family. It could be your spirituality. It could be giving back and contribution to society. For me, one of my pillars is growth. It could be could be a specific hobby or creativity in general. Your health. I mean, all these different pillars. And so making sure that we have solid foundation and we're strong in each of those. But like you said, it doesn't mean at any one time, certain areas of your life are going to be strong and other areas are not going to be as strong. And that's just the way life is. But those other pillars are going to hold you up while the other ones are regressing a little bit. And then it's kind of like an ebb and flow. But as long as you have enough solid life pillars, you're going to stay standing.
It's such a good analogy. I love the bar stool because you can think of these really balanced prongs that are, stabilizing you in different ways. And yes, I mean, some will be stronger than others, but you're right. I mean, we have to have a multitude of things that matter to us and that are substantive, right? Things that really, really have life significance. And it's very easy to figure out what those things are. They're very basic and almost biblical in nature. But I also, I want to talk about, people will say, well, I don't have the time. Okay. I'm burning and churning, and it's understandable. I mean, there are people who are stretched beyond belief and are doing everything that they can. They're in full on survival mode, whether it's providing a roof over their head, whether it's providing for their children, caring for their parents. I mean, I've never seen a demographic of women in this stage in life more depleted and more stressed out, right? And they're listening to us and they're thinking, well, this all sounds great, but I don't even have time to barely take care of myself, let alone work on these foundational pillars. What would you say to that?
A couple of things. One is, to me, you have to know what are your core values and screen everything you're doing through those core values. If it doesn't align with your core values, don't do it. And a lot of times, we spend so much time in business and in work life, and if you're an employer or an employee, focused on those companies' vision, mission, core values, and then you break it down into goals. But how many of us then go home and have family core values, right? Or have your own personal core values. So that if you don't have your core values, how are you screening what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to? So I would recommend really getting real with what are your core values. And a great exercise is write yourself a letter, a 10-year letter in advance, or a 20-year in the future, 10-year letter in the future. You date it. So like, I would say 2024, it's the year 2044. My children are 46 and 45. And this is what my life looks like. And so I have a very crystal clear vision of where I'm headed. So I know what my next 10 years are going to look like. If we don't know where we're headed, how will we get there? MapQuest, Google Maps, first thing it asks you is, what's your destination? And a lot of us don't know what our destination is. So getting crystal clear on what you want your life to look like 1 year, 5 year, 10 years out. And then the final thing I would say is practice saying no. I remember years ago, I said no to lunch meetings are very common in my industry. And I just said no to them. I hate them. I think they're unproductive. I don't enjoy them. It usually, whatever we want to talk about, usually only takes 10 minutes of the lunch. So I remember the first time after I decided no more lunch meetings, a guy called and said, let's go to lunch. I said, oh, I don't do lunch meetings. He's like, what? He's like, I don't do lunch meetings. And I said, I don't do lunch meetings. He's like, oh, well, let's meet for coffee. I said, I don't drink coffee. I said, if you want to talk to me, meet me at my office. And it frees up so much of your day when you don't commit yourself to lunch meetings. But a lot of people do because that's what people do in our industry. So just I think be really cognizant of what you're saying yes to. I mean, our time is so much more valuable than anything else we have, but we don't spend it as though it were the most precious thing we have. And I don't know why that is, but I think if people recognize how valuable every minute we have here is, they would be
Right.
more conscientious of what they said yes to.
Yeah, I think it's guilt. I think a lot of it is guilt and the shoulds.
Mm,
I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Why? Well,
mm,
again comes the guilt,
yeah.
because if I don't, then this. If I don't, then that.
Mhm.
That and it's every reason in the book to not put yourself first in a
Mhm.
moment where you may need
Yeah.
to, in order to be better at the other obligations that you've set out in front of you, or
Mhm.
your core values or your pillars,
Mhm.
or all of that.
Mhm.
And all of that helps to build, like you said, your foundation.
Yeah.
And breaking outside the box applies to not just career, personal life.
Mhm.
I mean, you told me you've been single
Mhm.
since your
Mhm.
divorce, and you say, people have a hard time with that. They're the first thing they want to do is set you up with somebody. It's like, oh my gosh, it's abnormal to be single in your 50s. What's wrong with you?
Exactly. Exactly.
you know, and what do you say to that?
Um, I mean, it is so true. I've never been happier in my life. I have more friends. I'm much more social when I'm single. Um, I travel more. I do more. I see more. I feel like I am so much more alive. Now, and I don't think that that's necessarily, I think I could find somebody, and hopefully I will one day, that I can be all of that and have a partner. But
Hmm.
there's nothing lacking in my life.
Right.
I'm not, it's not like I'm waiting for somebody to make my life more beautiful. It already is truly beautiful. But there is definitely a impression, I think, in society that if you're single, that is a condition that needs fixed, and let me help you.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting, and I understand that, and I think it's great. Everybody has their own walk and their own journey, and it's important to hear these stories. And there are a lot of women who reach out to me and they say, you know what? I mean, they say, congratulations on your marriage. I may be single the rest of my life by design, and I'm
Hmm.
like, good for you.
Hmm.
If that's what you want,
Yeah.
if that defines your happiness, then great.
Right.
Everybody has to walk their own walk, but there are absolutely no
Right.
boxes when it comes to what this stage in life should look like
Right.
in
Exactly.
terms of a relationship.
Yes.
And it's interesting also, because we were talking a little bit, I was asking you about your daughters in commercial break as well. And I want you to elaborate, because, we also parent very differently than how our parents parented us. And as I was listening to you tell me about your two
Yeah.
daughters, and they're on totally different
Yeah.
trajectories, I kind of chuckled, because, that was not the expectation in our
Yeah.
day, right? So tell us a little bit about them, and how you find yourself as a parent today too, that's outside the box.
Okay. So I have one daughter, 26, and she is at law school at the University of Florida. And then my other daughter, Elena, is 25, and she is in Australia, getting a master's degree. And I had a wake up call when they were 7 and 6. So I used to be the parent who would quiz them before every test. I knew every
Hmm.
project when it was due. I was doing flashcards with my girls when when they were like 6 months.
Before flashcards were a thing.
Yeah. So I was like I was all over the place in terms of, I was
Mhm.
in the classroom, I knew all the teachers, everything. And then one
Right.
day Maria came home with a project due, and it was her first major project in first grade. And it was a
Mm.
poster board, and we went and got the poster board, and she picked the project to be focused on Rosa Parks. And so I remember sitting there that whole weekend, and I drew out lines on the poster board so they were straight, and I would
Mhm.
show Maria, print this on this line, and then I would erase the line that I had drawn to make it look
Mhm.
perfect.
Yep.
And then I would put glue on the back of the picture. I said, Maria, put the picture right here, nowhere else, put it right here. So I basically laid out the whole,
You did the homework.
correct, right?
Yeah.
I'm all proud of it. We take it into school that Monday morning, and we're walking into the kindergarten area, first grade area, and I see these kids with their poster boards, and the handwriting is like down a mountain, and the pictures are
Mhm.
sideways, and it's crumpled and ripped. And I remember thinking, gosh, what mother would allow their children to send these posters in? This is their first big project. What example are you setting for your children? And I go into the classroom, and Mrs. Walton's standing there. There's a line of kids with their poster boards. Their faces are beaming. And Mrs. Walton is so proud of these poster
Mhm.
boards. And I look at Maria, and she was not excited. And
Mhm.
I was embarrassed. I'm like, I did this project, and I'm like,
Mhm.
what message am I telling her by doing it? I'm basically saying, I don't trust that you can do it, so I'm going to do it for you. And I got back to the car. I was crying. I was so upset with myself. And I'm like, why am I doing this? And I was doing it when I got real. I was doing it because I was a single mom, and I didn't want that teacher to think Maria came from a broken family where, her mom didn't care. And I was more concerned about what her teachers thought of me than what message I was sending my daughter. So that night, I went cold turkey. I didn't, and I did tell my children, I taught them that night how to do their laundry. I taught them how to make their lunches. They were 7 and 6. I mean, it was crazy.
You got everybody outside the box that day.
Yeah, and so I remember the first time the school nurse called and said, Elena said her lunch is on the counter. I said, yeah, I see it. It's here. He said,
right there.
And I lived at the time a mile from the school. And they're like, could you run it over? And I said, I'm sorry. I said, that's the consequence if you leave your lunch on the counter.
There it is.
Yeah. And so it was hard. I got a lot of, comments on my parenting style. But I remember, so what I would always say to them is, they would, if they called in a predicament, I would say, well, you'll figure it out. And I remember as an adult, one of my daughters called me about a predicament. And I said, oh gosh, what are you going to do? And she's like, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. And she was so confident. And it was like, oh my gosh, like that's all I wanted. At the beginning, before I had this revelation, I wanted them to have straight A's. I wanted their teachers to like them. I wanted their teachers to like me. But I said, no, at the end of the day, I want my children to have confidence in their own abilities. And they do. It took a lot. And again, I got a lot of criticism going through it. One daughter, I let them wear whatever they wanted. Elena, she would wear, sometimes she wanted to wear pajamas to school. Sometimes she wanted to wear her little princess dress to school. I'm going to let her choose what she wants to wear. Sometimes her shoes were on the wrong feet and she knew it, but she's like, nope, I'm wearing them that way. I'm like, okay. So I did get a lot of interesting comments, but I'm so happy with the way I did make mistakes too, but in that area, I do feel like I did succeed in having really confident children.
Yeah. And, I'm smiling, Betsy, because I'm hearing so much Audrey in what you're saying. It's just making me laugh because she was very progressive and very ahead of her time in that respect when it came to parenting and when it came to individuality and self choice and self-governance and the fact that you reap the rewards from good decisions and you suffer the consequences of poor decisions, just like your daughter didn't have lunch that day. Yeah. Oh, well, maybe in the morning you'll pay more attention to what you're packing up and bringing to school. Right. Or if you want to wear, the same yellow outfit 5 days in a row, it's your prerogative. Yeah. Go for it. Who cares? Again, and see, that's so you were already going outside the box with them before you even went outside the box on you. And that's what I'm picking up on. True. You were, it's so neat. I mean, you were applying those principles in their lives. And it's funny, we can project those outward, but isn't it amazing how we have a hard time doing that on ourselves?
I hadn't thought of that, but that's so true. Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. That's wild. I want you to please brag on yourself. You have an incredibly successful company. I mean, you grew. I mean, you obviously found out a couple of years into it, this real estate thing's really going to work. But I mean, you're friends with big time people in big time places. And, just talk to us about entrepreneurship, about taking that bold leap of faith and where it can lead. And it's not I'm not going to paint this perfect glamorous picture because I know you've had lots of trials and tribulations, but I want people to hear the possibility of what can happen when you break outside the box.
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I got into real estate is because I didn't like feeling confined in a corporation that told me what I was worth. And I didn't like that. I didn't like a cap on my income. And I didn't like the fact that I had to, if I had an idea, I'd have to go through several layers of management to even see if it would be implemented. So being an entrepreneur allows you, like you said, you reap the rewards. And if you're not working, you also reap those consequences. But that's what I like is we have so many creative
accountability.
Right. And we have so many wonderful ideas within us, but if we can't pursue them, then that's an obstacle. So So that has been very freeing. I think in terms of my career, what I did early on is, and I've always done this in my whatever I'm doing, pursuing, I like to have mentors in all of my pillars of my life. So in my career, I have some mentors. In my spiritual journey, I have mentors. In my health journey, I have mentors. People, and I like to have two types. I like to have a mentor that's just a couple steps ahead of me. So I'm like, okay, I know what my next step is. But then I also like to have these mentors that are so far out there that I see the long-term vision. And what I was surprised by, but learned very quickly, is most people want to help other people. So they're thrilled when they find out that they're your mentor. And sometimes mentors can be from afar. They don't even know. You're just watching them on social media, in the media, watch what they do. You read their books. And then others are formal relationships, and I've had both. And it's just so wonderful because I'm very visual. Like if I can see somebody else do it, I'm like, okay, I know I can do it. And so having those mentors in your life, in each area that's important to you, really helps you accelerate, I think, your growth. And constantly moving those mentors and shifting those up as you achieve certain things. You're going to need a new set of mentors. At the same time, I feel very strongly that we have the duty to look back and to pull somebody up and be their mentor as well.
100%. And I was just going to lead into that, which is something that you've chosen to do as well. So talk about your project and how you help others.
Yeah. So we started.
Passion project.
My passion project. In 2018, I founded Pepine Gives, and it's a 501c3 nonprofit that provides affordable housing to cost-burdened families in Florida. And it was really important to me because it's a segment of our industry that we don't serve, because cost-burdened families are usually in rentals or shared housing. There's a lot of them are stuck in this limbo, and they don't have or don't know how to have a home on their own. And so the nonprofit does that, and we work alongside. We have partnered with Habitat for Humanity. We work alongside the homeowner, the future homeowners. It is definitely a hand up, not a handout, which is what I'm all about. And the future homeowners and the families have to serve 240 hours working in their homes. So they built their house alongside us. And then we get to dedicate the house to them. In fact, we have a dedication coming up in a couple of weeks for our next house. But at the end of the day, like, that's to me what success is. My definition of success is if my presence positively impacts one person a day, then I've had success that day. And that company helps me and our agents and staff feel that.
That's beautiful. Is there a way? I mean, do you take volunteers?
We do.
Or how does that work?
Yeah, we do. And in fact, I think we have that on our website because we invite the community to work alongside us, because so many people they don't know how to connect in, and they want to work alongside us in the homes. Other people just want to donate money, which is totally fine too. But yes, we totally welcome that. The more people that we can invite into this space, the happier I am.
Oh, I love that. And before I ask you to give out all the places where people can find you, of course, I have to ask you quick real estate questions.
Yeah.
We just had on the news today that home sales are at, the price of homes are at an all-time high right now. Interest rates just got cut by half a point. Everybody's wondering, well, whose market is it? Should I buy? Should I sell? Should I, redo my mortgage at this point? What do you recommend?
So in almost every area of the country, it is still very much a seller's market. Inventory is still so low nationwide. We never rebounded from the 2008 recession, and that's not something that can be made up in a year or two. So we are going to have a deficit of inventory for several years. That is going to keep prices high. So it's wonderful. And the fact that interest rates are going down, and there's some speculation that they might go down even further, it's a wonderful time. The other nice thing is, in an election year, in 9 out of the last 10 elections, sales rebound and come back even stronger the day after the election and the year after the election. So we're set in for a really strong December and next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great tips. I could not end a conversation with a rock star in real estate without asking about real estate. I mean, I love the fact that we're breaking boxes here, but some people want to make some real estate plays because maybe that's how they break a box. You never know. Betsy, this has been so lovely. What a wonderful, wonderful human you are. And just congratulations to you and all your success. And more importantly, to the lives that you're going to impact with your book, with your nonprofit. So again, your book is Breaking Boxes. It's available everywhere. I'm sure people can go on Amazon and order. And then how can they reach you if they want to be a part of your nonprofit or just learn more about your real estate company?
So Pepine, or my personal website is betsypepine.com, just my name.com. And then you can also go to, I'm on all the socials under Betsy Pepine. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. Yeah. All of them.
You're everywhere.
I'm everywhere.
Pepine.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Betsy. And congratulations. And it's just been so lovely getting to know you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And thank you, by the way, for being with me since 2015. So
now I know how to put on makeup.
Well, there we go. And you look beautiful for this podcast. Even though a lot of people are just listening, they can always watch this on YouTube as well and see how gorgeous you are. What a lovely, lovely lady. You know, that's, I would say, the best part about hosting this podcast is not only do you get to meet these incredible women, but so do I. I have just felt so inspired and encouraged and really blessed to have so many amazing women on this podcast. And by the way, can I encourage you to share Over 50 and Flourishing with Dominique Sachse with those that you know and you love, your best friend, your sister, your mom, your daughter, anybody who you feel could benefit from this type of content. You know, it's such a wonderful opportunity to share women's wealth of expertise, of life lessons, of entrepreneurship, of hardship. You know, we don't feel alone, but you could glean one piece of advice from somebody, and it could be the change to enable you to make that turn, make that pivot, plant that seed that maybe you were afraid to act upon. So you never know how sharing this type of content could impact somebody in your life. So I'm grateful if you do that. Comment below if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel so that way you'll be notified every week, every time I release a podcast or a YouTube video, which is how Betsy found me in the first place. And if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, I always ask and encourage, please, if you wouldn't mind, rate, review, subscribe, and share. Yes, share the podcast. It's how we grow. It's how we expose more wonderful women to stories like Betsy's and others that we've had here on this podcast. So I thank you in advance, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one. Support for today's episode comes from iMemories. Okay, are you like me and you have boxes of old VHS tapes with all of your old memories stored on them, hanging out in the garage, collecting dust, not to be seen by anybody? Stop it. All you have to do is load your tapes into the Safe Ship Kit, send it into iMemories. They organize it all. They are the only digitization company with apps that let you stream your memories to your TV, phone, or tablet. No, they don't just put them back on DVDs that go back in the closet. They actually put them where they're going to be enjoyed. Just load your Safe Ship Kit with your tapes, films, and photos. No organization necessary. Send it in. They carefully digitize your cherished memories with the utmost care. You stream and share them with your loved ones on your phone, TV, or tablet, and that's it. iMemories just launched the industry's only AI enhancement service. They call it Mackenzie AI, and it enhances your memories with stunning color, clarity, and sharpness. How on earth do you say no? iMemories is offering our listeners 50% off digitization. Get started now for just $15. Go to iMemories.com/over50 to get your Safe Ship Kit for sending in your home movies. Then use promo code over50 for half off your digital conversion. That is iMemories.com/over50.